My husband doesn't love me, and he doesn't love our child either. On the day our son was born, he didn't even look at him before placing him in my arms. Later, his first love returned to the country. The man, who had always been cold, got drunk at home for the first time. Laughing as he held our child in his arms, the son happily wrapped his arms around the man's neck and whispered to me, "Mom, what's wrong with Uncle?" I crouched down and held him in my arms, my eyes red as I explained. "The person Uncle likes has come back, so we shouldn't disturb him anymore. We have to move out." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Taking my son back to his room to sleep, I returned to the guest room, opened my computer, and began drafting the divorce agreement. This year marks the 7th year of my marriage to Regan. It is also the 7th year we have been separated. Now, I am finally ready to let him go. Bang, bang. Pushing the door open, my 7-year-old son came to me holding his model airplane. "Mom, are we really going to move away?" He looked at me, his eyes full of reluctance, but Uncle hugged me at night. "Does that mean he's starting to like me?" I was taken aback, feeling a bit dazed. After 7 years of marriage, Regan still refused to let our son call him Dad. When our son was 2 years old, he took him to the supermarket to buy groceries and ran into an acquaintance on the way. Because the son accidentally called out Dad, he put his toddler son down on the ground and made him walk home on his own. By the time they got home, the son had fallen countless times, with his knees and palms all scraped and bruised. At the age of 4, the son begged for a long time before Regan agreed to take him to the amusement park. Again, because of the son's unintentional dad, Regan let go of his hand, letting a 4-year-old child get lost in a crowd. When we found him again, our son was hiding in a bush, crying so hard he was almost out of breath. From then on, our son learned to call him Uncle, and our family became a complete joke. Thinking of this, my nose tingled with sadness, and I couldn't help but pull my son into my arms. "Perry, the person Uncle likes is coming back. We can't keep staying in this house anymore." My son's eyes dimmed, then he quickly held up the airplane model in his hand to show me. "But Mom, Uncle gave me a gift tonight. If he doesn't like me, why would he give me a gift?" His expression was so eager to prove that he is a child loved by his father. I opened my mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. What should I say? What could I say? I wanted to tell him that Regan was happy because his white moonlight was coming back. Should I tell him that this gift actually came thanks to another aunt? I couldn't say a word. I could only silently swallow the bitterness and sorrow in my mouth, just like before. Using a polished truth to protect my child, I kissed my son's forehead and wiped the tears from the corner of my eye where he couldn't see. This is a facade that a mother, even in the depths of pain, must maintain. Holding back the urge to sob, I spoke with a smile. "Perry, if Mom wanted to take you away from Uncle, would you be willing?" My son's body stiffened for a moment, then he said softly, "Do you really have to go? I haven't even openly called him Dad yet." Tears finally overflowed, and I bit my lip hard. "Perry, Uncle, he doesn't like us staying in his house. Mom will take you away." "Okay." My son withdrew his hand, hugging the model airplane tightly to his chest. After a long silence, he said, "I want to give Uncle 3 more chances. If he really doesn't like us, we'll leave him forever." Closing my eyes, I agreed to my son's request. "Okay, Regan, my son and I are giving you 3 more chances. After these 3 times, there will never be a place for you in this family again." Today is Friday, the day Regan's white moonlight returns to the country. They were college sweethearts and got engaged right after graduation. Who would have thought that just 1 month before the wedding, Lena fell in love at first sight with a French man. She left Regan without hesitation and went to France to pursue true love. From then on, they went their separate ways. Regan was depressed for quite some time because of her. It was at that time that I became his assistant. One drunken night, we ended up having a child. I also became his secret wife, and along with my child, we were never truly accepted by him. After printing out the divorce agreement drafted yesterday, I started preparing my resignation letter. Unlike my son, I've grown accustomed to Regan's cold-heartedness, and I won't foolishly wait for a prodigal to return. 7 years is more than enough to shatter all my youthful fantasies. "Marjorie, are you really going to resign?" A colleague glanced at my screen and asked me quietly. I smiled and brought out the excuse I had prepared long ago. "Well, the child's father is abroad, and I plan to take the child with me so the family can be reunited." My colleague nodded. "That's fine. Raising a child alone in the country must be really hard for you. You know what, in private, we all actually thought you were a single mom." Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Though it was a bitter laugh, I'm not a single mom, but I'm worse off than one. My eyes began to sting, and I quickly put on a practiced smile, careful not to let anyone notice. After submitting the resignation letter, Regan walked in with Lena. The woman walked ahead, a gentle smile on her face. Regan followed behind her, unable to take his eyes off her for a moment. My colleague nudged me and whispered softly, "Marjorie, did you see that? Our Mr. Regan is like an iron tree blooming at last." I forced a smile, while inside, a heavy rain began to pour. An iron tree only takes a dozen or so years to bloom. Okay, Regan, even if I waited a lifetime, I wouldn't get him to glance my way. The moment we passed each other, I couldn't help but call out to him. I'd barely started when the man shot me an icy glare. "Assistant Marjorie, is something the matter?" The aloof words carried a warning, cautioning me to swallow the words in my mouth, warning me to be mindful of my position. I lowered my eyes, using the last of my strength to shield my reddened eyelids. "Sorry, Mr. Regan." Regan grunted and immediately averted his gaze. He continued to stare intently at Lena, as if she were his entire world. "He is my husband, the father of my child, at this very moment. He openly expresses his affection for another woman right in front of me. It's ironic, and it's sobering. Thinking of this, I smiled mockingly at myself. Originally, I had intended to tell him that I was resigning. It seems unnecessary to say now. After all, he never cared, not about my feelings, not about our child, and even less about this marriage in name only. Back at my desk, I received a call from my son on his kid's smartwatch. "Mom, there's a parent-teacher meeting tonight, so school let out early today. Uncle Regan brought me to see you." I froze for a moment, then instinctively stood up and headed out, just in time to see Regan reach out to fix Lena's hair. Not far away stood his son, carrying a backpack. The little one stood at the elevator entrance, staring blankly as his father engaged intimately with a strange auntie. So gentle, so patient. Both my son and I have seen it. I was about to take him away. Regan also noticed the son. The man's body stiffened, and he instinctively withdrew his hand, but the next second, he protected the woman and slowly yet resolutely walked past his son, as if I had never known him. A pang of heartache hit me, and I quickly led my son back to my workstation. Before I could explain, my son's eyes reddened, and he asked me, "Mom, is that the person Uncle likes?" At that moment, I lost all strength to speak and could only nod with tears in my eyes. My son didn't ask any more questions and quietly took out his homework to write, but tears still couldn't help soaking the paper. I held my son. He was my whole world. "Regan, you have 2 chances left before my son and I leave." We packed our things and prepared to go home. On the way, my son asked me, "Mom, can Uncle come to the parent-teacher meeting tonight?" After 7 years of marriage, Regan had never attended a single parent-teacher conference for our son. Seeing the hopeful look in his eyes, I couldn't bear to refuse and sent a message to Regan. "There's a parent-teacher conference for our son tonight. Are you available?" The message was sent, and as always, it sank without a trace. My son lowered his head, hugged his backpack, and asked me, "He doesn't want to come, does he?" Then, he smiled understandingly and said, pretending not to care, "It's okay, Uncle is busy." I understand. Hearing my son's sensible words, it felt as if a huge rock was pressing down heavily on my chest. The pain made it almost impossible for me to breathe. Just as I was about to speak, my phone chimed. It was a message from Regan. "Free, will come." Surprise instantly surged in my heart, and I almost couldn't wait to show the chat interface to my son. "Perry, did you see? Dad said he'll come." My son paused for a moment, then immediately broke into a happy smile. After 7 years of marriage, this was the first time Regan was willing to attend the parent-teacher conference for our son. Having received Regan's affirmative reply, our son was excited all the way. He chatted non-stop about how many times the teacher had praised him this semester, how many high scores he had achieved, and how many awards he had received. He also mentioned that he had been elected class monitor for the semester and that the teacher had promised to announce it at tonight's parent-teacher conference. At this, my son asked me, "Mom, since Dad knows I'm doing so well in school, he'll like me more, right?" I was taken aback for a moment, then felt even more heartache, silently praying that Regan wouldn't break his promise. Before leaving, I hoped my son would get his wish, even if it was just our self-deception. The clock on the wall chimed again and again, and the time for the parent-teacher meeting drew closer. Regan still hadn't shown up. Lena's social media feed, however, had been updated. In the photo, the man was sitting next to an unfamiliar little boy, teaching him how to build with Legos hand in hand. Caption, "A good father in the future." I turned my head and looked toward the living room. My 7-year-old son was sitting quietly on the sofa, playing with his toys. It was the same Lego, the same age, the same need for companionship, but by his side, there has never been Regan as a father. Sensing my gaze, my son seemed to understand something and cautiously asked me, "Mom, is Dad busy again?" I stared blankly into my son's eyes. Not daring to tell him, his dad isn't busy, he's just spending time with other kids. I couldn't say anything, just like so many times before, holding my son tightly in my arms with a pained heart. I told him, "It's okay, you still have Mom, Mom will always be with you." The son wisely didn't ask further, but couldn't help his eyes turning red. On the way to school, we both tacitly avoided mentioning Regan. It was as if he had never promised anything, and this family had always only had two people. "Regan, you have one last chance left." After parking the car, I held my son's hand and walked into the school, but the moment I stepped into the classroom, I froze in place. "Regan, Dad." Regan sat by the window and instinctively turned to look at us upon hearing the words, her pupils contracting. "How did you get here?" The surprise in her words made me pause in my steps, and a sense of foreboding rose in my heart. It had been half a year since our son started elementary school. Regan, yet she didn't even know the name of his class. The son didn't hear clearly and skipped over to the man. "Dad, you." Regan frowned. "What did you call me?" The son's expression stiffened, then he skillfully changed his address. "Uncle, you're sitting in the wrong seat. My seat is in the front." He looked at Regan with joy in his eyes. This was Regan's first time attending his son's parent-teacher conference, and the first time he kept his promise, but such excitement didn't last long. The next moment, Regan avoided his gaze. "You're not mistaken, this is my seat." The son was stunned for a moment and was about to speak when a figure bumped into him. "Get away, this is my dad." Out of maternal instinct, I immediately shielded my son in my arms. Regan also instinctively stood up, but paused after meeting Lena's surprised gaze. Withdrawing his hand, he pulled the boy behind him and said stiffly, "Nicky didn't mean to. I apologize on his behalf." Both my son and I were stunned. Such protection, such care, my son had never experienced before. "Who is he?" I stood up and asked softly. Regan paused for a moment, and when he met my gaze, a flicker of guilt flashed in his eyes. "The child of a friend." "Is that so?" I murmured, but I understood in my heart. This is Lena's child in the photo, the one Regan is willing to accompany. Sure enough, the next moment, Lena came in with water, looking very surprised to see us. "Assistant Marjorie, are you also here for the parent-teacher meeting? Why isn't the child's father here?" Hearing this, I instinctively looked at Regan, but only saw his evasive gaze. I understood then, he was afraid I would expose him. In a daze, it felt as if I had returned to Lena's day of returning to the country. That day, the usually cold man got drunk for the first time, and for the first time, he smiled when he heard his son call him Dad. Both my son and I thought we were finally about to get our happiness. But the next second, Regan uttered the name of Lena instead. Only then did I realize he had mistaken me for someone else. I unconsciously tightened my grip on my son's hand, just as I was about to speak. My son spoke first. "My dad isn't in the country, he's very busy, and I don't want to disturb him." One sentence left two people in shock. I lowered my head in disbelief, only to see my son's slightly reddened eyes. He looked at Regan, trying to put on a sensible smile. "Uncle, Mom and I will go first." At this moment, all the sorrow is stuck in my chest. At the moment I turned around, Regan suddenly grabbed me. "What did Perry just say?" Regan looked at her son in shock, as if to confirm. Is it because the child who once couldn't be driven away has now learned to keep his distance on his own? I twitched the corner of my mouth, feeling particularly ironic. "Nothing much, Mr. Regan. The parent-teacher meeting is about to start." Pulling my hand away from his, I took my son and walked to the front to sit down. Until the moment I sat down, I could still feel the scorching gaze from behind, but no matter how scorching, it couldn't warm the heart. The parent-teacher meeting began as scheduled. Holding my son, I wished for the teacher's voice to be stern for the first time, blocking out the affectionate chatter of the family of three behind me. As expected, the teacher specifically mentioned my son, announcing that he had been elected class monitor for the semester and asking him to come on stage to speak. But my son refused. He was unwilling to go on stage, and he was unwilling to speak. I know. He didn't want to see Regan sitting next to that child. He didn't want to admit that his own father would rather attend a parent-teacher conference for someone else's child, nor would he let him openly call him Dad. After it was over, I took my son by the hand and went to the teacher's office to complete the withdrawal procedures. Just as I stepped out of the school gate, I ran into Regan, who was waiting for someone. He stood by the roadside, as if he had been waiting for a long time. Holding a stick of cotton candy in his hand, Why are you so late? Let's go home together, Regan said, handing the cotton candy to his son. Let's go home together. Once, this was the state my son and I looked forward to the most. Now, it just sounds ironic. My son reached out and took the cotton candy from Regan's hand, his face, gloomy all evening, finally breaking into a smile. Looking at my son's expectant eyes, my heart softened, and I was about to agree when I heard him say, "Her child is a transfer student and didn't participate in the previous class committee election. Why don't you let our son tell the homeroom teacher that he won't be the class monitor this time? Let's give the opportunity to Nikki." That one casual sentence chilled both my son and me to the heart. Indeed, all gifts come with a price tag hidden in the shadows, just like this cotton candy. It too has its cost. "Okay, uncle," it was my son's voice, with reddened eyes. He put the cotton candy into his mouth. Regan's eyes softened slightly as she was about to take her son's hand when the phone rang. It was Lena. "Regan, Nikki isn't feeling well. Can you come to us now?" Regan changed his expression and immediately turned to get into the car. The moment the car door closed, his son suddenly cried out loudly, "Daddy!" Regan paused his hand on the door, leaned out, and met his son's slightly reddened eyes. After a long silence, he said, "Be careful, this time." He didn't ask his son to change how he addressed him, but this was the last time his son would call him Dad. That evening, my son and I packed our bags and booked our flight tickets to go abroad. Neither of us mentioned Regan again, and there would no longer be a light in the living room waiting for him all night long. Early the next morning, my son and I left home with our luggage and checked in for our flight. Before turning off my phone, I sent one last message to Regan. "Wishing you happiness." The next second, the chat box that had been silent for a long time began to vibrate frantically. My finger hovered over the power button, hesitating to press it. It wasn't about whether to leave or not, it was about wondering if such an abrupt, half-hearted exit was really the best choice. Perry, noticing my hesitation, he tugged at my sleeve, lowered his head, and reminded me in a muffled voice, "Mom, we should go," seeing the urgency in his eyes. I suddenly understood everything. I had known all along Regan was no good, known he didn't love me, known this marriage was a complete and utter mistake, but I still plunged in without hesitation, because at that time, I truly loved him. Now, I have someone I love even more, that is my child. I can no longer think about parting on good terms or a prodigal son's return. What I must do is hold my son's hand and stride forward. Turning off my phone, I look at my son's innocent face. And my heart seems to be filled with an inexplicable force. It feels warmer than elusive love. "Let's go, Mommy and you are about to start a new life." At the company, Regan watched the shutdown prompt on the screen, his frown deepening. Yesterday, he rushed over only to find that Nikki had an upset stomach from throwing a tantrum over wanting to eat ice cream. After finally calming Nikki down and preparing to return to school, he realized it was already too late. Neither my son nor I waited for him. While in the car, he had thought of many reasons to explain himself, but when he saw the empty street, he didn't feel relieved. Instead, he felt a hollow emptiness inside. It's as if someone who was supposed to be there forever suddenly left. At this thought, Regan suddenly smiled. How could that be? Marjorie would never bear to leave me, would she? She wouldn't be willing to part with it. Back in the car, Regan drove straight to the company. Just like many times before, faced with his own mistakes, he chose to escape, to let time heal everything. 7 years ago, when he realized he had forced himself on me while drunk, it was like this. 7 years later, he hurt our child for Lena's sake. Just like this. The phone rang. It was Lena. "Regan, where are you? Can you come keep me company? I'm so scared." Her voice was very soft, the kind of fragility and pitifulness Regan liked the most. Completely different from Marjorie. Different. Regan listened to the phone call, but his mind uncontrollably drifted back to 7 years ago, that chaotic night. No one knew that he was sober. He was sober when he walked into the wrong room, sober when he pulled me into his arms, and sober when he did things that no one in their right mind could have done. As for why, Regan gripped the steering wheel tighter, a shadow flickering in his eyes. "Because I am too radiant, like a little sun. I am earnest, diligent, positive, and upwardly striving." All the beautiful words seemed to befit me, especially when looking at him, my eyes would sparkle, making him lose his focus several times. But it was this very radiance that he feared. He feared that, just like he couldn't keep Lena, he wouldn't be able to keep me either. So the next day when he woke up, he pretended to know nothing, provoking and attacking me with the harshest tone, making me feel uneasy, guilty, and full of self-doubt. Only in this way would I willingly stay by his side. The less he seemed to love me, the more inferior I felt. He has been using such methods for 7 years. As the light turned green, Regan flashed a shrewd look in his eyes and drove away from the intersection. Back at the company, Regan was about to lie down when his phone lit up. This time, it was a text message. "Wishing you happiness, from Marjorie." Bang! Regan kicked the coffee table aside, his face darkening. "Marjorie, what do you mean? Are you out of your mind? Who gave you the nerve to say such a thing?" No one replied. Regan stood up and ran toward the parking lot while calling me. "Beep, the number you have dialed is turned off. Damn it." The man cursed a few times and pulled open the car door. "Marjorie, answer the phone." Still no response. "The night wind is strong, but it cannot blow away Regan's inner fear." It's been half an hour, and I still haven't responded to him. After 7 years of marriage, this is the first time. No matter how late it was before, as long as he called, I would get up immediately and rush to his side, even if it meant pulling him out of a strange woman's embrace. Thinking about what happened tonight, Regan pursed his thin lips. Could it be that he went too far with me? His breathing steadied a bit, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously lifted. "It seems I'm really jealous this time." Fine, this time he'll just have to lower his head and properly coax me, but still, he needs to teach me a lesson, so I don't get too full of myself in the future. As the villa drew closer, Regan suppressed the excitement in his heart and returned to his usual aloofness. Walking into the courtyard and looking at the villa without a single glimmer of light, Regan let out a scornful laugh. This time, it finally looks somewhat convincing, pushing the door open. The man's cold and elegant voice echoed through the villa. "Marjorie, I'm back." No reply. Regan, his face darkened, but he still suppressed the unease in his heart. "TSK, stop pretending. Marjorie, if you don't come down soon, I'll take this step back." "Marjorie." Regan couldn't hold back any longer. He bounded up the stairs 2 at a time and pushed open the bedroom door. The bed was empty. Damn it. He turned and went to Perry's room, pushing the door open. "Marjorie, my patience is..." There was no one. In the childlike room, only an unfinished Lego set lay on the floor. It hinted at the owner's lack of attachment. Staggering slightly as he approached the Lego, Regan recognized it. This is what he bought for his son, 9 days after his 6th birthday. As always, Regan deliberately made plans with friends to fool around at the bar until the early hours on his son's birthday. My son and I waited for him hour after hour, making call after call, waiting for the birthday cake to melt, waiting for the midnight bell to ring. He only came home reeking of alcohol, completely drunk. That night, looking at my son's bloodshot eyes, I lost my temper at him for the first time. And Regan, he looked at me with a mocking expression and said, "Marjorie, who do you think you are? If it weren't for your scheming to climb into my bed back then, do you think you could have kept this child and become my Mrs. Gerben?" "Marjorie, one should know when to be content." He watched me, once again choked by his words, once again beginning to doubt myself, feeling smug inside. So, 9 days after our son's birthday, he finally brought out the gift he had prepared, as a reward for yet another lesson in discipline for me and our son. But now, my son and I have left. Without any warning, without looking back, Regan covered her face and collapsed weakly to the ground. Everything was spiraling out of control. The phone rang again. Regan suddenly sat up and grabbed her phone. "Marjorie, you..." "Regan." Lena's voice came through the phone. Regan's face darkened, no longer holding its usual gentleness. "What's up?" Lena paused, seemingly a bit surprised, but continued anyway. "Regan, the water pipe in our house is broken, and Nikki and I don't know what to do. Can you help us?" "How can I help?" Lena said somewhat awkwardly, stammering. "I was wondering if maybe we could stay at your place for a while." "You think too highly of yourself." Regan let out a laugh, her voice chillingly cold. "Once my son and I leave, Lena will be of no use anymore, so he couldn't be bothered to keep up the act." "Lena, I thought you were a smart person." The breathing on the other end of the phone hitched, asking in disbelief, "Regan, what did you say?" Regan looked up at the drawing left by his son on the wall, his voice low. "Lena, what makes you think I would want a woman who has betrayed me, especially a second-hand one at that?" Something fell to the ground, revealing the agitation of the person opposite. Regan was too lazy to listen any longer and hung up the phone directly. Lying on the ground, he stayed awake until dawn. He had just managed to fall asleep when he was woken up by a call from the company. "Mr. Regan, it's bad news. The client has suddenly backed out of the proposal that assistant Marjorie was handling, and now the project is stuck. Please come quickly." Regan frowned and instinctively replied, "Then call assistant Marjorie and have her handle it." The manager paused for a second and said cautiously, Mr. Regan, Assistant Marjorie has resigned. Now, we can't reach her either. Regan opened his eyes, looking shocked. Resigned? Who approved her resignation? How come I didn't know about this? A series of questions left the manager somewhat stunned. Assistant Marjorie said her husband works in the U.S. and she wants to take the child to reunite with the family there. So I submitted the resignation letter, and it was all approved through the proper process. Didn't you know, Mr. Regan? Regan was stunned. He had indeed come across the resignation letter on his computer before, but at that time, Lena was pestering him with something, so he didn't pay attention to it and approved it without even looking. At this thought, he clenched his fists, his heart filled with regret. It's all that woman's fault, if it weren't for her, damn it. But the next second, he quickly grasped the key point in the manager's words. They went to the United States. The manager nodded. Yes, Assistant Marjorie said she wanted to take the opportunity to further her studies. After hanging up the phone, Regan immediately booked a flight to the United States. Marjorie, in this lifetime, you will never escape me. On the other side, in the United States. Relying on Regan's last remaining shred of conscience, after 7 years of marriage, my assets are quite substantial, enough for me to settle down quickly in a new place with my son. After a good night's sleep, I took my son to briefly get to know the neighbors around us. If all goes well, this will be our home from now on. To be honest, before coming to America, I always thought divorce was a big deal. I thought leaving Regan would leave me heartbroken and in immense pain. After arriving in America, I suddenly realized how joyful and liberating it is not to have to wait for a man to come home. I no longer have to wake up early in the morning to make breakfast for Regan or endure his cold remarks. No more smelling the lingering perfume on his clothes. Getting angry while coldly tossing them into the washing machine, I realized that divorce feels so liberating. Even our son, who had always wanted to get close to Regan, couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the steaming food on the table. Mom, if only we had left Uncle earlier. Hearing this, I couldn't help but smile, though my heart felt a pang of bitterness. Regan is a scumbag, and even more so, a complete jerk. He never fulfilled any fatherly responsibilities. Yet he always loved to boss me and our son around, all because of his title as a father. For example, no junk food, no talking while eating, no knocking over bowls and dishes with chopsticks, and so on. Once his son fails to comply, he would say, Marjorie, I really don't know how you're raising him. Can't you even teach the most basic manners? I used to be so accustomed to his oppression that I would only weakly say sorry at times like this. Now that I don't love him anymore, I just want to say to him, you're full of crap. Thinking of this, I kissed my son's little cheek, my smile full of hope. Perry, we will definitely get better and better in the future. The son nodded, revealing a missing tooth with a bright smile. I believe in Mom. Just as the commotion continued, the doorbell rang. Regan's hoarse voice came from outside the door. Marjorie, open the door. In an instant, both my son and I unconsciously wiped the smiles off our faces. I wasn't surprised that he had found us so quickly. After all, we weren't officially divorced yet, and many things were still tied together. My son glanced at me uneasily and whispered, Mom, Uncle he. I patted his head and asked, Mom needs to have a good talk with Uncle. Why don't you go upstairs and play for a while? Okay. The son hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. After he went upstairs, I opened the main door. Regan looked somewhat haggard, as if he hadn't slept at all. And a stubble of youthful beard had sprouted around his lips. It was completely different from his usual image of a financial elite. Upon seeing me, Regan immediately showed anger. Marjorie, you've got some nerve. How dare you not answer my calls? Do you believe I do, I said directly. Regan's words caught in his throat, his gaze burning into me as if searching for the weakness I once had. But he was bound to be disappointed. I was weak because I loved him, but now that I no longer do. The brain I lost has grown back. Smiling, I stepped aside to let him in. After all, this is the place where my son and I plan to settle down, and I don't want anyone to know that my ex-husband is a madman. Walking over to the sofa and sitting down, Regan glanced around and sneered. Is this the kind of place you can only afford after leaving me? I laughed too. Well, I don't need to rush into being a stepdad to my ex's child, so naturally I can stay. My words were sharp, Regan, but he laughed. He looked at me, his eyes full of confidence. As expected, you're still jealous. Considering you've been with me for 7 years, I can give you one chance. Come back to the country with me, and I'll let bygones be bygones. My hand trembled as I poured the coffee. I swear, I really wanted to splash the scalding coffee from the pot right onto his face, just to see how thick his skin really was, but I held back. It really wouldn't be worth ending up in jail over a scumbag like him. Putting down the coffee, I took the printed divorce agreement out of the drawer and tossed it onto the table. As the paper slid across the table, I remembered how Regan used to do the same, always throwing documents at me. Anyone who didn't know better would think he had Parkinson's. Now it's my turn, and it feels damn good. Regan, his eyebrow twitched, but he still picked up the document from the ground. Seeing the 4 big words divorce agreement on it, the arrogance on his face finally faded away. Marjorie, are you serious? I nodded. Otherwise. Regan, his pupils contracted, then he forced a calm smile. Marjorie, stop it. I know you're just angry at Lena. Don't worry, as long as you come back with me, I'll never contact her again. He said it so earnestly, as if he really meant it. But I no longer cared. Taking the divorce agreement, I turned to the last page. I've already signed it. I won't fight you over the marital property, apart from the property under my name. Just give me 50 million in one lump sum. In the future, my son and I will never disturb your enjoyment of life again. I thought, since I've made such a big concession, he should be satisfied now. After all, as long as money could sever these ties, it would be a good deal for both him and me. But Regan grew even angrier. He snatched the divorce agreement and tore it to pieces. I don't agree to the divorce. Marjorie, you will never leave me. Looking at his bloodshot eyes, I suddenly froze. And an unexpected feeling surged in my heart. You wouldn't be reluctant to let me go, would you? As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt like laughing. Regan fell silent. He swallowed hard, as if his disguise had been torn away, a flicker of guilt and confusion showing in his eyes. After a long time, I finally let out a faint hum. I suddenly laughed, tears streaming from my eyes. An overwhelming sense of absurdity completely enveloped me. Regan, do you like me? You actually like me? Heh, you actually like me. Regan pursed his lips and reached out to me. Don't touch me. I forcefully slapped his hand away, my gaze icy. Regan, you disgust me. The man froze, then looked incredulous. Marjorie, what did you say? I said, you disgust me. Regan was utterly enraged. Marjorie, are you insane? How dare you speak to me like this? You clearly love me very much, don't you? I wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes, regained my composure, and walked step by step to Regan's front. Yes, Regan, I did love you once, but I am a person, not your toy. How dare you think you can take advantage of my love, hurting me again and again? How dare you think that after hurting me, saying I love you would make me eagerly forgive you and come back to you? What makes you think that I still love you? On what grounds? As I stepped closer, Regan retreated step by step, until he bumped into the soft sofa and collapsed onto it helplessly. He hadn't seen me this resolute in a long time, not since that night. In a daze, he recalled the time he interviewed me again. He asked me, Marjorie, your resume isn't particularly outstanding, and you don't have any relevant industry experience. Why did you want to apply to our company? What makes you think we would accept you? And I said, because I am willing to learn. I am not afraid of hard work, and I embrace challenges and difficulties. Just give me one chance, and I will surely impress you. 7 years later, I truly made him look at me with new eyes. That confident and resolute girl, having weathered 7 years of storms, stood before him once again. More resilient than ever before, but he no longer had the chance to keep her. The hand hanging down gradually clenched into a fist, piercing his heart with waves of pain. Looking at the speechless man, a trace of disdain and irony flashed in my eyes. The disdain was for Regan, the irony was for myself, for having drowned in a nightmare fabricated by such a person for 7 years. 7 years, how many 7-year periods are there in a person's life, wasted just like that, lost in thought? Regan suddenly spoke. What about the son? What? I didn't react immediately. Regan looked up, a hint of madness in his eyes. If you want a divorce from me, I won't give you custody of our son. From now on, I won't let you see him either. Are you really sure about this? I glared at Regan, feeling as if he were a demon. Regan curled his lips, as if he had found my weakness. If you come back with me, I promise I'll treat you and our son well. We'll have a happy family. Marjorie, can you bear to let our son grow up without a mother? He looked at me, the triumph in his eyes almost overflowing. This time, it was my turn to panic. Just as I was about to speak, a child's voice came from upstairs, over my dead body. My son rushed down from upstairs angrily, his voice hoarse as he said, I only recognize Mom. You're not my dad. I don't have a father like you. He pointed at Regan, his face, half similar, filled with anger and fear. He was afraid he would never see me again. I'm also afraid that I might compromise for him and return to that hellish home, Regan said with a stern face and a cold voice. This is not up to you." The son wiped away his tears, as if he had made up his mind. "Mom, don't worry about me. Just divorce Dad." His hand holding mine trembled slightly, but he continued to speak. "Mom, I'll take care of myself. You don't need to worry about me. Wait," he sniffled, holding back a sob. "When I grow up, I'll come find you again." At that moment, I was in so much pain I felt like I was about to die. If my child treated me poorly, I could abandon them without hesitation. But Perry is different. From the moment he was born, we have supported each other. He is not only my child but also my family. For him, I am willing to give everything. At this thought, an idea gradually became clear in my mind. "Fine, I promise." My son immediately turned his head and cried, begging me not to go back. Regan immediately burst into laughter, eagerly pulling me into his arms, crying tears of joy. "Marjorie, I will treat you well, I promise." I suppressed the urge to vomit, stiffly letting him move as he pleased. "Regan, you must remember, you were the one who pushed things to the extreme first, so don't blame me in the future." After returning to the country, Regan really seemed like a changed person. Not only did he stop contacting Lena, but he also completely changed from his usual indifference, becoming extremely warm towards me and our son. It was almost to the point of being at our beck and call, but neither my son nor I were grateful. Just like he used to be, we ignored him indifferently. When returning to the country, my son cried almost to the point of fainting, especially when boarding the plane. He even bit Regan's wrist, trying to make him let go of the hand that was restraining me. I felt heartbroken, but I couldn't find a chance to explain it to my son. It wasn't until I returned to China that I found the opportunity to explain to my son, asking him to give me some time and that I would handle everything properly. Regan had no idea what I was thinking. He only thought he had me under his control and became even more arrogant. Coupled with the fact that my earlier mention of divorce had genuinely frightened him, he offered many concessions. I had him reinstate my position at the company, and while working, I quietly began gathering the company's client resources. At the same time, a large sum of money was spent to hire a detective to keep a close watch on Lena. Regan is the best stepping stone Lena can reach, and she won't give up easily. Sure enough, within half a month, Lena couldn't hold back anymore. She didn't dare to blame Regan, so she directed all her anger and hatred toward me. She believed that as long as my son and I died, she could take my place. After receiving the news that Lena had hired someone to cause a car accident, I realized that the opportunity had finally come. So, first I used the excuse that the car needed maintenance and had Regan drive my car away. Then I said I had to work overtime and asked Regan to pick up my son. But actually, I had already taken leave for my son and sent him to learn painting. At 4 in the afternoon, news of the car accident came. Regan collided with a van on the way home from school. His condition is unknown, life or death. Originally, I really just wanted 50 million and that would have been enough. Unfortunately, you weren't satisfied. The doctor diagnosed that Regan's leg was ruined, leaving him disabled. During his recovery period, I revealed my identity and temporarily took over his position, becoming the new head of the company. However, Regan could not accept the fact that he was disabled, and his temper grew increasingly irritable. Smashing things became a common occurrence. Both doctors and nurses had strong opinions about it. Understanding their hard work, I transferred Regan to a nursing home after he had been hospitalized for a month. More than half of the patients here have mental illnesses, making it very suitable for him. 6 months later, I completely took over all the company's affairs. Regan had also gone completely mad. However, we did not divorce. After all, this was what he had always wanted. So I just inherited all his property as his spouse. And by the way, I used his money to meet a lot of young people. You see, that's why one must learn to be content. Contentment brings happiness. End. Story 2. Isaac dislikes me, his fiancée from the countryside. To make me call off the engagement myself, he hired a poor student from the school to impersonate him. A nouveau riche and someone too poor to afford a meal, a perfect match. I bet the nouveau riche won't last 3 days and will definitely call off this engagement. The impoverished student was tall, aloof, fragmented, and reticent. I took it at face value, believing that the Goddard family had truly gone bankrupt, to the point where he couldn't even afford a meal. My father's words echoed in my ear. Sweetie, if they're bankrupt, so be it. We don't judge people by their wealth, we have the means to support them. So, when he was hungry, I offered him food. When he took on part-time jobs, I acted as his bodyguard. When his mother was hospitalized, I paid with my card. I've taken good care of my impoverished fiancé. Until that day, a handsome young man snatched away the breakfast I had carefully prepared. I was about to get angry, but he looked at me with resentment. Christina, look closely. I am your real fiancé. My dad said I have a fiancé in the city, to let me choose whether to accept or not, and also to help me get into a good university. In my second year of high school, he arranged for me to transfer schools, directly into Isaac's class. I heard that the Goddard family is the wealthiest in City K, with deep roots, so my dad even made sure I brought many nice gifts. But when I got off the train, the Goddard family didn't have anyone to pick me up. I was a bit angry at first. But by the time I arrived at the school, seeing the slender Isaac, wearing a faded short-sleeved shirt, my anger vanished without a trace. It was a classmate I met on the way, who kindly showed me the way after looking at the photo in my hand. Class 3, grade 11, you're looking for Isaac, I know him, I'll take you to him. It was he who raised his hand and pointed him out to me. Following his finger, I saw a boy sitting by the window, his back straight, slender and neat, the afternoon sunlight, as if sifted through a sieve, slanted across his profile. An occasional breeze lifted a few stray strands of hair, revealing his smooth forehead and straight brow bone. I looked down at the photo, then at him. The heart-wrenching voice of that classmate echoed in my ears. You don't know. The Goddard family went bankrupt 2 years ago. Now Isaac has to rely on financial aid at school, works part-time jobs after class, and sometimes is so poor he can't even afford meals. Our family actually had very little contact with the Goddard family, and as for something like bankruptcy, the Goddard family wouldn't specifically publicize it to our rural area. I let out a soft ah and nodded like a pecking chick, promising him I wouldn't spread it around. This is the new transfer student, Christina. Everyone, please welcome her. The teacher pointed to an empty seat in the back row. You can sit there for now. I looked up and saw it was next to Isaac. From the moment I entered the classroom until the teacher assigned me a seat, Isaac never once looked up. He was very focused, head down, writing something on a piece of paper. I had to pass behind Isaac to get to my seat. As I walked by, my backpack accidentally snagged on something. With a light tug, an enamel mug fell out from under Isaac's desk. It clattered loudly as it rolled halfway across the floor, and the only thing inside, a half piece of dry, hardened steamed bun, fell out. Now coated in a layer of dust, I clearly saw Isaac's shoulders tremble almost imperceptibly. He tightened his grip on the pen but didn't turn around. A few suppressed snickers came from around us. I caught a glimpse of several boys nearby whispering behind his back, their eyes full of contempt. So Isaac has been living such a miserable life. That spirited young man in the photo actually can't even afford a decent meal now. I bit my lip, sat down with my backpack in my arms, and whispered an apology. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. He still didn't look at me, just kept his head down and stuffed the mug I had picked up and placed on the desk back into the desk compartment. I'm Christina. Do you remember me? I tilted my head and leaned in to look at him. Actually, we met once when he was 6 years old. Like my mom, I'm a huge fan of good looks, and back then, little Isaac was so delicate and pretty I simply couldn't get enough of him. But at that time, I took him to play with the chickens, and he got pecked on the bottom by one, so he never paid any attention to me again after that. Luckily, he didn't turn out badly and is still as pretty as he was when he was little. He was startled by my sudden move, slightly tilting his head back and looking down at me with lowered eyes. His eyes were so beautiful, like sparkling black gemstones, with dark, long lashes that veiled his cool gaze when lowered, making him seem less distant and unapproachable. After the shock, he still didn't speak. I scratched my head. I'm your fiancé, remember? He happened to be drinking water and choked on hearing this, coughing with a suppressed voice, so I quickly patted his back. After recovering, he looked at me with an inexplicable expression, his fair face flushing red. Maybe he didn't remember, or perhaps his feelings had changed after going bankrupt. Anyway, I understood. Let's just act as if we don't know each other and start over as friends. So I smiled and reached out to him. From now on, we're desk mates. My name is Christina. Nice to meet you. By the way, could I ask you for a favor? I thought Isaac would still ignore me, but this time he actually spoke, though his tone remained icy. I don't have time, and that classmate who kindly showed me the way. After seeing me enter the classroom, he immediately turned to the stairwell, where several other wealthy kids like him were waiting. Eric excitedly said to the handsome boy at the center, Isaac, it's done. That girl isn't clever at all. She believed everything I said. When I pointed out Fitch to her and told her that the Goddard family went bankrupt and Isaac couldn't even afford to eat, her jaw dropped. She even saw Fitch's black steamed bun. People are struggling so badly these days. Does she really think she can help lift them out of poverty? I bet within 3 days, She'll obediently have her father come to cancel the engagement. Isaac showed a flash of impatience but still confirmed. Are you sure it can be done in 3 days? She really bought it. I saw the photo in her hand, just a side profile of you, and it looks pretty much the same as Fitch. If you said it was Fitch, no one would doubt it. I also told her that after the Goddard family went bankrupt, you, Isaac, even changed your name to avoid debt collectors. She definitely believed it. If you really run into her, just say it's someone with the same name, so she won't latch on to you. Isaac stuck his hands in his pockets, his handsome features relaxing. A nouveau riche from the countryside. What era is this? Still playing the child betrothal game? Exactly. The Goddard family is, after all, an old aristocratic family with a century of heritage. Even if it's an arranged marriage, it should be with a girl from a suitable background. Like Brother Pay marrying the heiress of JC Group. How come you end up tied to some country bumpkin? Absolutely. My mom has been making a scene at home for days over this, even going on a hunger strike to force my dad to break off the engagement. But my father always listens to the old man in everything. And the old man is deeply loyal and insists on fulfilling the promise he made to his comrade from his youth. By the way, but I think that fiancée of yours, Isaac gave him a cold look, and he quickly corrected himself. That country girl is actually quite pretty. I even secretly took a photo just now. Want to take a look? Maybe you'll like her. Isaac scoffed. Are you out of your mind? What kind of standards do I have? Would I ever be interested in someone from the countryside? Eric scratched his head and muttered, she's really pretty, much more so than your childhood sweetheart. The school bell. I didn't know any of this. At this moment, my eyes were only on Fitch. Yes, he said his name was Fitch, and his classmates also called him Fitch. The Goddard family really changed even his name to evade debts. I spent the whole day trying to find a way to talk to Fitch, but he responded very little, sometimes even pretending not to hear. But I'm really talkative, having inherited my dad's chatty nature. My dad can talk to a cow all day long. Plus, I've always been the type to easily warm up to people, so I can pretty much carry on a conversation without any barriers. Hey, do you know any good food spots in City K? It's my first day here, and I'm not familiar with the place at all. By the way, are you a day student or do you live on campus? Why is this knowledge point different from what I learned in town? Where is the water station? I'm so thirsty. Fitch sometimes couldn't stand it anymore and would whisper. Pay attention in class. After a pause, he said, the water dispenser is by the door of class 4. You can only go there after class. After class, I had already forgotten about fetching water. I quickly called my dad and told him about the Goddard family's bankruptcy. My dad was really surprised on the other end. What happened? It's okay, sweetie, if they're really bankrupt, so be it. We can't be snobbish. It's in these critical moments that true character shows. If you really like that boy, we can just support him. No big deal. I nodded, not particularly fond of it either. It's just that Fitch is really quite pitiful. I don't have much else, but I have plenty of money, and right now that's exactly what he lacks the most. Our family started getting rich the year I was born, in 1998. When news of the commercial housing reform first appeared in a corner of the newspaper, he set his sights on the abandoned old grain depot in the county town. By 2005, when I started middle school, the city began developing a new district, and he plunged headfirst into that. Later, when the internet boom swept through, he didn't understand any of it, but he understood how to invest money. Our family's wealth is recent, compared to the Goddard family's multi-generational accumulation. I am indeed what people online call a nouveau riche, but being nouveau riche has its perks. At the very least, my dad handed me bank cards one after another without batting an eye. I could even buy the KTV where Fitch is currently working part-time, but I didn't do it. I pestered Fitch for several days in a row before I found out which KTV he works part-time at. Fitch, working a night shift, was somewhat different from his daytime self. He dressed more casually, and even his hair was a bit disheveled. I had secretly followed him here, so when Fitch saw me, his eyebrows furrowed tightly together. Who told you to come to a place like this? He pulled me into the stairwell. Who told you to come to a KTV? Now he had a lot to say. I pulled a sandwich out of my backpack and shoved it into his hands. Fitch paused for a moment, his hand stopping mid-air. Eat it. I nudged the food toward him. Oh, I just bought too much. The boss said it would expire if not eaten tonight. And I can't finish it all. Wasting food isn't good. So help me out with this. I've asked around. Fitch works at least 3 part-time jobs every day after school. First, handing out flyers on the street, then running a fried noodle stall, and only after closing up does he come to this KTV to work another shift. A plate of fried noodles costs $7. which he could never bring himself to spend on himself. He would either make do with the steamed buns he brought in the morning or wait for the leftover refreshments from the KTV customers. After these past few days, I had already gotten quite familiar with my classmates. Many of them even specifically warned me not to get too close to Fitch. They say he has a peculiar personality, gloomy all day long, keeping to himself and only lowering his head to do his homework, not interacting with anyone. They say his family not only has a mother suffering from uremia but also a disabled younger sister. Strange, Goddard's mother has such a serious illness, but I don't dare to ask Fitch, afraid of hurting his feelings again. Why? Fitch held the sandwich, looking down at me. I waved my hand and widened my eyes slightly. Why so many questions? You're my deskmate, and you helped me with the problem today. I nodded firmly. Yes, my dad said if I don't get into a good university, he'll break my legs. Fitch, this is me bribing you, you know. This sandwich isn't free, you have to keep tutoring me tomorrow. I happened to glance today and, wow, this guy scored 149 in math. He pursed his lips. You don't think I'm dirty? I widened my eyes. How could I? I bent over and exaggeratedly sniffed around him. Don't you know how clean your mom washes your clothes? I sat next to you today, and the wind kept blowing that lovely soapberry scent from you toward me. Look at my clothes. I raised my grimy sleeve to show him. I'm way dirtier than you. Would you think I'm dirty? In the darkness, Fitch suddenly looked up at me, his eyes shining like stars. He shook his head, still holding the sandwich. I lifted my head proudly. That's more like it. After all, I'm your foo. I pouted to the right and quickly stopped myself. Fitch left work 10 minutes early, insisting on walking me home, and even slipped a set of his notes into my backpack. Long before I arrived, my father had already bought a house for me in the YT Villa district. Ever since my mother passed away, he's been watching over me like a hawk. This time, he even wanted to skip work and come with me, but I politely declined. In the end, he carefully selected an auntie to accompany me to school. As we were about to enter the villa area, I turned a corner and took Fitch straight down another road. The houses over there are cheaper. His family went bankrupt, so seeing the rows of villas inevitably brought back painful memories. We're here. I pointed casually at one of the houses and urged him. You should hurry back too. Fitch looked up, then suddenly reached out and patted the top of my head. See you tomorrow, deskmate. If any familiar classmates were present, they would notice that the Fitch before them seemed like a paper cutout suddenly brought to life. There was less lifelessness and impending doom, as if there was a bit of anticipation for a tomorrow that was never quite beautiful. After Fitch left, I immediately ran back to the villa area. I ran very fast, and just as I was about to turn into my building, I nearly collided with someone coming from the opposite direction. However, the person opposite reacted quickly, immediately reaching out a hand to steady me just in time. I looked up and saw a very handsome and delicate young face. I frowned in confusion. It felt so familiar. Ah, that's right, he looks a bit like Fitch, but why does he look so dazed? I raised my hand and waved it in front of his eyes. Hey, I'm fine, you can let go now. He froze for a moment, then immediately released his grip. Sorry, I didn't mind and just nodded before walking ahead. The person behind suddenly called out to me. Are you also from No. 1 high school? However, the moment he opened his mouth, my little dog darted out to greet me. I happily ran toward it, instantly forgetting about that person. Isaac stood there in a daze, watching the girl hug her dog and joyfully disappear around the corner. By the time he snapped out of it and chased after her, she was long gone. He opened the group chat. Is there a girl at our school with long hair, tall, big round eyes, and a small mole on the tip of her nose? Has anyone seen her? Someone replied. What's the situation? Where did you meet a new girl? Love at first sight. Nonsense. Isaac has such high standards. He didn't even like the school beauty. How could he fall in love at first sight? Isaac rested his legs on the coffee table, staring at the words love at first sight for a long time. Cut the crap. Just tell me if you've seen her or not. Well, I've seen the one with long hair, the one with big eyes, the tall one, but I've never seen your combination before. Or, buddy, I'll scout around for you tomorrow. As long as she's from No. 1 high school, she won't get away, Isaac said lazily. If it works out, there'll be a big reward. Isaac comes from a wealthy family and is exceptionally good-looking, giving him a natural confidence. There's no one he's ever fancied that he hasn't been able to win over. After class that day, Fitch bent down and took the broom from my hand. You sit down. The setting sun dyed the classroom window panes a honeyed hue. Fitch gripped the smooth, worn broom handle and began sweeping with practiced ease. Do you often do duty? I sat on Fitch's desk, swinging my feet. He hummed in agreement and explained. Some people pay $10 a time. After saying that, he glanced at me awkwardly. I didn't mean it like that. I jumped off the desk, grabbed the mop nearby, and said angrily, how stingy, cleaning such a big classroom for only $10, even worse than my dad. The cicadas outside the window suddenly grew very noisy. Fitch looked down at the ground and suddenly felt that the tedious duty wasn't so unbearable after all. After finishing his duty, Fitch planned to head toward the LQ Gate tunnel, so he turned his head and said, I've written down today's problem-solving approach on the back for you. You can review it again tonight. If there's anything you still don't understand, I'll explain it to you tomorrow. I didn't pay it much mind and looked up at him, asking, can I go with you to set up the stall? Fitch paused, then said tactfully, everyone is scrambling to study in the evenings, otherwise it's easy to fall behind, in the end. Fitch still didn't agree to let me tag along. He seemed genuinely afraid that my dad would break my legs. When I finally found my way to Fitch's stall, I saw him wearing an apron, hunched over as he stir-fried noodles for a customer. Fitch saw me. His spatula paused for half a second. What are you doing here? Classmate. At that moment, a gentle voice came from the side. Are you Fitch's classmate? Following the voice, I saw Fitch's mother. Perhaps due to illness, her cheeks were very thin, but her beautiful eyes and brows were still visible. Hello, Auntie. I'm Fitch's deskmate. I greeted her with a smile. She looked very happy, her slightly graying hair glowing under the warm yellow light. Little girl, would you like some noodles? Our Fitch doesn't often have classmates over. Auntie will fry some noodles for you. Would you like to try them? Fitch gently pressed her down and glanced at me. You sit, I'll take care of it. I looked at him with a bright, smiling gaze, my eyes urging him, hurry up, I'm hungry. Fitch didn't say a word, turning around to pull things out of the phone box. First, 2 farm eggs, cracked into the hot oil, the aroma sizzling and bursting forth. Then he added a large spoonful of shredded pork, sliced round pieces of ham sausage, some shrimp, and a secret meat sauce. As he stir-fried everything over high heat, the rich fragrance had long since filled the air. Continue to stir-fry until the greens and tender bean sprouts are cooked through, then add a handful of noodles and keep stir-frying. His wrist moved swiftly, the noodles in the wok tumbling with a soy sauce hue. Scallions were sprinkled in, and the resulting bowl of noodles, vibrant with reds and greens, looked especially appetizing. I glanced at the prices on the menu and realized Fitch had made me the premium version, which cost $21 a serving. I sat at the small table. Fitch brought over the noodles, and I rubbed the disposable chopsticks together. Fitch crouched down to look at me, a hint of nervousness in his eyes. Try it, I have to say, he really has some skills. Just the aroma alone makes one's mouth water. I took a big bite and immediately gave him a thumbs up. After a while, I hugged the bowl, my eyes red as I looked at Fitch. Fitch, why does your fried noodles taste like my mom's? I miss her. Fitch looked into my eyes, flustered and stumbling over his words. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I stared at Fitch for a long moment. He was so well behaved. How could anyone be this well behaved? His bangs fell softly over his beautiful brows and eyes, that brain capable of solving countless complex problems, yet so foolish it could only muster an apology. I remember, when we were kids, Isaac was clearly a beautiful but proud swan. It seems that life these past few years must have been very hard for him. I tilted my head and looked at him. You will definitely succeed. Fitch blinked. What? I stopped speaking. I've never seen Fitch like this before. Even with one foot stuck in the mud, he remained clean and untainted. He was also incredibly capable. Despite only studying during class time, he consistently ranked first in the grade year after year. So, a brief loss of brilliance doesn't mean anything. I think Fitch will definitely succeed, no matter what he does. I didn't contact Fitch over the weekend. My hands itched as I made my way to a racing club. I hadn't touched a car since coming to City K. Who would have thought that just as I arrived at the club entrance, I was turned away. Little miss, we're closed today and not accepting any guests. Sorry about that. I pointed at the sign outside. It clearly says you're open today. That was an oversight by our staff. I was a bit discouraged. Having finally found a place with a relatively high standard, I loved riding oxen since I was a child, and later I loved riding bikes. After getting into racing, old Lynn sent me abroad to study for a few months. Later, when I really couldn't stay any longer, he brought me back to the country. When I was 15, he sneakily handed me a document folder. When I opened it, I saw a land use rights transfer agreement for dozens of acres, located in the hilly area east of the city, a wide open terrain with natural slopes, exactly the kind of racetrack topography I had been talking about for half a year. Just as I was about to step out, a gust of wind swept past my side. A familiar, handsome face stopped in front of me, his tone filled with surprise. "It's you." I stared at him for a long moment before finally remembering he was the guy from that night. "You know how to race cars." He curved his beautiful peach blossom eyes, as if he had discovered something rare. I nodded generously. "Yes, but unfortunately I can't give it a try today." He waved his hand, and the manager who had been arguing with me earlier nodded and left. He looked at me. "How about a match? I haven't seen many girls play this. Let's just consider it making a friend. You're always welcome at the club whenever you come." I shrugged and enthusiastically accepted this provocative invitation. The moment the green light came on, both cars shot off the starting line almost simultaneously. From the corner of my eye, I could see the guy's car demonstrating an astonishingly precise racing line at the first turn. Instead of taking the conventional outside-inside-outside route, he hugged the apex, the smoke from his rear tires bursting in front of my car. It was clear he had received professional training. And for quite some time, I smiled and sharply turned the steering wheel. Too bad, compared to me, they were still a bit short. When the checkered flag dropped, I didn't see the other car. After entering the rest area, my phone suddenly rang. "Hey girl, that Fitch, his stall got smashed up. I'm watching it right now. You coming?" Of course, I couldn't follow Fitch around 24/7, so I hired someone. I hung up the phone, changed my clothes, and ran out without having time to say anything. Isaac found the lounge, but the person was long gone. "Where is he?" He pressed the manager who had followed him, left, said they had something to do, didn't even wait a moment. The manager thought to flatter him. "Young Master Pei, I've never seen you go so easy on someone. You're really willing to set aside your pride just to chase after a girl." Isaac threw down his helmet, too lazy to deal with him. "Go easy on her." Damn it, he genuinely lost, to a girl at that, and he gave it his all. But he wasn't angry, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He realized he genuinely adored that girl. Isaac opened the group chat with his buddies, tossed in a photo, and typed quickly, "See, this is fate. Ran into her again today. She's gorgeous, and even more so when she's racing. I'll take you guys to see her sometime if I get the chance." The people in the group responded enthusiastically, some praising the photo, others mocking Isaac for getting himself into trouble. Only Eric stayed calm for a long while, and finally tossed a picture into the group chat. "You're done for, Isaac. You must have some bad luck clinging to you. Isn't the one you've got your eye on your fiancé from the countryside? Look at that upstart. Just take a look at these photos of us, aren't they of the same person? As far as I know, that girl really mistook Fitch for you and has been treating him incredibly well. Oh no, this is a disaster. Good heavens." Isaac sat up straight, opened Eric's photo, and examined it back and forth several times. It took him a long while before he slowly typed a few words. "What did you say?" When I arrived at Fitch's stall, he had been hit somewhere, and blood was seeping from the corner of his mouth. I had long heard that Fitch's father left behind a pile of gambling debts before he died. These creditors would sometimes go to Fitch's house, and if he couldn't pay, they would eat, drink, and stay there for a few days. Occasionally, they would even go to Fitch's school and publicly pressure him to repay the money in front of many people. Because this was a debt his father had incurred from gambling, Fitch had no obligation to repay it himself. That's why these people had to resort to threats, intimidation, and harassment from time to time to force repayment. When the debt collector with the scarred face saw me, he sneered, "Oh, got a girlfriend now. I figured you were spending your money elsewhere otherwise. How could you not even come up with $5,000? He reached out to grab Fitch, but in the blink of an eye, I lifted my foot and kicked the scar-faced man right between the legs. Though I may seem unremarkable, old Lin, fearing something might happen to me, forced me to learn taekwondo since I was little. Don't be fooled by my slender frame when I clench my fists. They're all muscle." I grabbed his wrist, and the scar-faced man let out a sharp "oh" as he tried to pull away. But couldn't budge an inch. "That damn woman. The police are on their way. I'm not afraid of you screaming any longer." I had already called the police on my way here. Sure enough, the sound of sirens grew louder and closer the next second. A group of debt collectors scattered almost instantly with a loud commotion. Only the scar-faced underling, whom I held back, couldn't escape. By the time we left the police station, it was already the middle of the night. Fitch, over the years, he had already paid back a lot of money for his father. For the remaining $35,000, including both principal and interest, I secretly paid it off for him, hoping for lasting peace. "Does it still hurt?" I pointed to his cheek, where a deep 5-finger mark was left on his originally fair skin, swollen and raised high. Fitch shook his head, paused halfway, and looked up at the night sky. I followed his gaze upward, hearing his voice beside my ear. You say, he stretched out his hand, palm open. The moonlight is so bright and beautiful, so why does it shine on me? I looked up at the moon, spreading my arms in surprise, and exclaimed, wow, really, I just noticed. It's true that the moon is fuller on the 16th day after the full moon. Today's moon is so big and round, just like a mooncake. Fitch, do you want some cake? I'm hungry. Fitch had been watching me, and at my words, he chuckled softly and nodded. That night, we didn't eat any cake, in the end. We ended up having the supreme fried noodles made by Fitch. The next day in class, I still arrived at the classroom earlier than usual. While no one was looking, I lowered my head and took out the breakfast my aunt had prepared from my backpack, just as I was about to put it into Fitch's desk. A pair of beautiful hands flashed before my eyes and snatched my breakfast away. Staring at my empty right hand, I looked up, about to get angry, when I saw an exquisitely beautiful face. Is it you? I looked at him in confusion. Why did you snatch my sandwich? Isaac choked back a smile. Then a hint of grievance surfaced in his eyes. Christina, have you forgotten me? I'm Isaac. I looked at him in surprise. Huh, your name is Isaac too. He tapped the top of my head with his finger. That year when we were 6, you used a chicken head to peck my butt. Have you forgotten all about it? That's when I realized something was wrong. You are Isaac. I glanced at Fitch's desk. Then he is, Fitch. Isaac looked at me matter-of-factly, curious why I had mistaken him. You didn't mistake him for me, did you? I pulled out the address I kept close to me and pointed at it, asking him. But, I've looked, and there's no one there anymore. At the time, I vaguely searched around, and someone pointed out Isaac, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Besides, I wasn't there to force a marriage anyway. Getting into a good university was my top priority. Fitch was on a level far beyond Tsinghua or Peking University. Following him, I could at least get into a 985 or 211 school. So I figured, who cares about some fiancé? If I couldn't find him, so be it. And most importantly, Fitch was also good-looking, a different kind of handsome compared to the Isaac in front of me. Isaac, perhaps it was the dazzle of splendor and luxury that tinged his features with an air of nobility and boldness, whereas Fitch's beauty carried a hint of resilience, seemingly fragile yet always standing unyielding. Who gave you the address? It's written wrong. But, he bent down, pretending to be angry. Christina, now see clearly, I am your fiancé, the one you were betrothed to since childhood. Isaac, I don't know who misled you into thinking Fitch was me. I scratched my head. Sorry about that. More and more people entered the classroom, and many spotted Isaac. Isn't that Isaac? Didn't he transfer to another class? Why is he back? Isaac straightened up and handed me the sandwich. It's okay. I'll pick you up after school. The old man has been wanting to see you. That night, he transferred 500,000 to Eric, telling him to stay abroad for as long as possible. I looked up and saw Fitch, who had entered the classroom at some point. He was holding onto his backpack strap, slightly hunched over, standing quietly in place. His gaze was fixed on my face, the light in his dark eyes somewhat fragmented. Fitch, he heard everything. Throughout the entire class, Fitch didn't speak again, and his demeanor instantly reverted to how it was when we first met. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. I picked up a pen and poked his arm firmly. Fitch turned to look almost immediately, and I saw a flicker of light in his eyes. Wow, it's just like the little dog I have at home. I only need to call out once, and both he and the dog would look at me with sparkling eyes. So here's the thing, someone with ill intentions earlier told me you were Isaac, and even made up a whole story, which is why I mistook you for someone else. But even if I mistook your identity, the time we've spent together isn't fake, right? You can't leave me. I don't know why I was so anxious, but after a moment of panic, I could only threaten him. You promised to help me. You can't just give up halfway. If I don't get into a good university, I won't let you off the hook. Fitch suddenly bent down and started rummaging through something in his desk. After a while, he pulled out a thick notebook. These are the classic math exam questions from the past few years. I've written several solutions for each. The ones marked in red are the simpler methods, which can basically handle similar problems. The ones in blue and green are more complex, but they help you understand the underlying logic of solving a whole category of questions. If you grasp them, you'll be able to handle any problem of that type. Fitch held the notebook, his fingers gripping it so tightly they turned pale. He thought for the entire class, examining himself over and over, and finally had to admit that he had nothing to offer. Nothing that could compare to others. All he could offer were these cheap, useless things. After a pause, he said, "It's okay if you don't understand. I'll help you." He looked at me, his eyes sparkling like starlight when he smiled. "Christina, I'll help you, whatever you want to do, I'll help you." I took that notebook. It was a thick one. Fitch's handwriting was very neat. The entire handwritten pages were clean and beautiful. "Thank you, Fitch." The fact that he was still willing to talk to me meant he was still willing to be friends with me. I pressed the notebook against my cheek, leaned in with a smile in my eyes, and said, "I'll definitely read it carefully, so we're still friends, and I'll still go to and from school with you." Fitch hesitated for a moment, then finally gave a slight nod. During the break, I called my dad and said the Goddard family hadn't gone bankrupt. I had been mistaken. My dad made a surprised sound. "That's good news. Now you won't be so worried all the time and have no time to call your dad." He suddenly paused, sounding quite regretful. "Well, then the matter of visiting them won't be easy to bring up now." As the last class ended, I habitually patted Fitch on the shoulder. "Let's go." Fitch didn't move, following his gaze. I saw Isaac standing at the classroom door, though I hadn't noticed when he arrived. Noticing my glance, Isaac tilted his head and smiled naturally. "Let's go. The driver is waiting outside." It was then that I remembered old Mr. Pay had called me at noon, and I had agreed to go see him with Isaac. Fitch lowered his head, tidying up a few more things with his hands, and said softly, "It's all right, I can go back by myself." I looked at Fitch and inexplicably remembered the time I found Round Bean. It was raining heavily that day, and the puppy, only a few months old, was left abandoned on the roadside, soaked and shivering. Suppressing the strange feeling in my heart, I followed Isaac and left. The Goddard family home is very large. The Goddard family old mansion is grand and elegant, nothing like my own home. Old Mr. Pay was very happy to see me and asked many questions. However, Isaac's mother really doesn't like me. Her expression was unpleasant when she saw me. On the way back, Isaac explained, "That's just how my mom is. Once you spend more time together, she'll come to like you." I didn't care. Whether she liked me or not was none of my business. It's not like I'm going to marry her. Isaac suddenly waved his hand in front of my eyes. "By the way, that Fitch, stay away from him." Hearing the name Fitch, I snapped back to attention. "What?" He suddenly stopped talking, hesitating as if holding something back. "Never mind, just remember what I said." I was a bit angry, but in the end, I didn't say anything. From that day on, everyone was saying that Isaac was pursuing me. He pursued me openly and without any attempt to be discreet, to the point where everyone knew about our relationship. He's pursuing his own fiancée. It's a romantic gesture. What do you know? I thought Isaac looked down on this fiancée from the countryside, but it turns out he likes her so much. I heard that when Christina first arrived, she mistook Fitch for Isaac and treated him incredibly well. I always said, how could Fitch, that poor guy, have such great luck with women, with a beauty like Christina chasing after him like a lovesick puppy? Turns out he was just a fake. I didn't hear any of these words, because they were specifically said for Fitch to hear. After P.E. class, I couldn't find Fitch anywhere. I searched everywhere and finally overheard two girls talking as I passed by. "It's so scary." Dennis and the others locked Fitch in the equipment room, saying they're going to teach him a lesson. Oh my, should we report this to the homeroom teacher? Forget it. If Dennis finds out, we're done for. We can't afford to mess with him. It's not worth it for Fitch. I immediately dashed toward the equipment room, but halfway there, Isaac rushed out and grabbed me. "Weren't you supposed to bring me water? I didn't see you the whole game." I struggled to break free anxiously. "Sorry, I've got something urgent right now. Are you going to look for Fitch again?" "Christina, you have to remember you just mistook him for someone else. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't even be qualified to speak to you." "Isaac," I looked at him calmly, "maybe at first it was because I mistook him for you. But the person I've been spending time with since is Fitch, not Isaac. I can tell the difference." Isaac frowned. "What do you mean?" I didn't have time to listen to him, and dashed toward the equipment room like the wind. The equipment room is located under the main stage of the playground, and once the door is closed, it's pitch black inside. Fortunately, when I arrived, Dennis and his group were still there. I grabbed him by the collar and said fiercely, "Give me the key, or I'll beat you to a pulp." Dennis's family does have some influence, and he acts like a bully, relying on his father's connections with the principal. His face flushed red. "Let go, Christina. You've got some nerve. How dare you hit me?" I wasn't afraid of him at all. I reached out and slapped him hard. "I'll hit you if I want to. Do I need to pick a date? Hand over the keys." Even Scarface couldn't beat me, let alone these flabby high schoolers. "Fitch." I pushed the door open and shouted loudly. Through the light from the opened door, I immediately saw Fitch lying on the ground, drenched in sweat. Under his messy bangs, his slightly opened eyes slowly turned to look at me. It was then that I realized Fitch had experienced this kind of thing more than once. At school, a few boys led by Dennis often found various excuses to bully him. Perhaps no one knows how terrifyingly strong a boy's jealousy can be. Fitch excelled in both academics and looks, and despite coming from a poor family, many girls liked him. However, Fitch rejected every love letter he received, yet many girls still had crushes on him. People like Dennis thought, Fitch such a low-class person, how dare he? So they bullied him, even spreading malicious rumors about Fitch. Fitch accidentally saved a child on his way to school. When he was almost late, the child's mother drove him to school in a Bentley, and Dennis and the others saw it. That day, rumors spread throughout the school that Fitch was being kept by a rich older woman. Who would have thought Fitch was that kind of person? He looks so aloof and clean-cut, yet he's clinging to a rich woman for money, I heard. He plays pachinko there just to please older women. No wonder. I was wondering how a wealthy woman could be interested in him. Turns out he's willing to go all out. Later, the matter blew up, and it was only when the Bentley lady brought road surveillance footage to the school to explain in person that Fitch was cleared of suspicion. But the school's handling of the rumor-mongers like Dennis was half-hearted, and it wasn't even made public. But this time, I dragged Fitch straight to the principal's office. Christina, Fitch pulled me back. Don't cause trouble for you. I ignored him and kept pulling him along. Fitch sensed my anger. His tall frame bent over as I tugged, and he stayed silent. Unfortunately, I had someone record the confrontation between Dennis's group and me, and he can't deny his own words. I made a huge scene, and this matter can't be resolved peacefully, if they really don't want to settle it. I'll just post the video on Twitter. When I walked out of the principal's office with Fitch, I felt completely refreshed. I looked back at Fitch and realized he had been watching me the whole time, his eyes brimming with admiration. I immediately straightened my back, pretending to cough a few times. Remember to help me write the self-criticism. The video captured my arrogant demeanor while hitting someone, but considering my eagerness to save a life, a minor punishment was unavoidable. Fitch smiled. Alright, when I saved Fitch that day, Isaac was watching the whole time, but later, he said nothing, and in the following days when he looked for me, it was as if nothing had happened. I felt a bit embarrassed and thought about finding a chance to talk it out with him. Just then, a friend of mine from abroad suddenly sent me a video. Little Christina, is this person talking about Isaac, your fiancé? I clicked to take a look. It was a bar overseas, noisy and chaotic. So the person's voice was turned up loud. Isn't it just ridiculous? Isaac had me find Fitch to impersonate him, all just to ditch his fiancé from the countryside. And then, goddammit, who knows what kind of shitty fate this is? The guy fell head over heels for his fiancé he'd never even met before. Now, to chase after that girl, he's fucking exiled me. Alright, for my buddy's happiness, I'll go all out. So that's how it is. All the questions have been answered. It's strange. My first reaction upon seeing this video wasn't sadness, but relief. I think I'm fortunate that the first person I met by chance was Fitch. I turned off my phone and poked Fitch's arm with a pen. I'm afraid of the sun. So Fitch took the seat by the window. The afternoon sunlight streamed in, casting a halo around his silhouette. What's wrong? He put down his pen and turned to look at me, treating every little thing with seriousness. I studied him carefully. He looks even better with a bit more weight. I've definitely been taking good care of him. My dad has come to City K, I whispered, and was pleased to see the panic on Fitch's face. My dad came to break off the engagement. The two families didn't interact much. But this childhood betrothal had tied them together for so many years, and quite a few people knew about it, both emotionally and logically. A public break was necessary. Fortunately, both sets of parents disliked each other, so the engagement was called off quickly. By the time Isaac found out, the marriage arrangement no longer existed. I heard that on that day, he raced home in his car and happened to run into my father stepping out of the Goddard house. Isaac, who had always been proud and flamboyant, begged for the first time, "Uncle, please give me another chance." I don't know how my dad responded. When I saw him, he had his hands behind his back, fuming with anger. What kind of nonsense is this? If he doesn't think my treasure is good enough, I don't think much of his son either. That scrawny stick of a boy, one punch and he wouldn't be able to stand on all fours. Old Lynn was at a stage where he couldn't stand any boy my age. And he happened to catch sight of Fitch beside me. He glared with eyes like a judge. Don't stand next to her. As a result, Fitch didn't dare approach him for several years afterward. Later, Isaac came to see me. "Do you like Fitch? He's not better than me in any way. Does he know how much you spend on a bag? What do you see in a poor guy like him? You and I are a perfect match. Fitch is from a completely different world than us." He said this not in an accusatory tone, but calmly. Stating it as a fact, I smiled. I thought you would apologize to me. After I finished speaking, Isaac pursed his lips and said, "That was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean it. I see. He's probably the type of person who's just not born to admit mistakes, or perhaps he feels there's no need to apologize, and my forgiveness doesn't matter to him." I looked at him very seriously. I have money, a lot of it. I can buy any bag I like myself. I won't marry someone just because they can afford to buy me a bag. If one day I run out of money, I'll just buy cheaper bags. No matter what happens, I believe I can always live well. I like Fitch. I like any bag he buys for me. Isaac, I'm not angry about your deception, really, because I never cared. I was just fooled by you once, and it didn't matter. But toying with people won't be a one-time thing for you. Such a character will stay with you for life. I truly feel sorry for you. Later, Isaac didn't bother me again. Occasionally, I would run into him at school, and he always had a different girlfriend by his side. Later on, I heard that he went abroad for college after the Gaokao. Fitch got into Tsinghua University the year he took the Gaokao. As for me, I followed in his footsteps and managed to get into a 985 university in the same city. My dad was so overjoyed that he threw a banquet of 400 tables overnight. It was also at that time that I learned Fitch had once considered dropping out of school. Just a few days before I arrived, after graduating from university, Fitch continued his studies in graduate school. In recent years, the Douglas family's life has improved a lot. Fitch's younger sister has also started middle school. The only regret is that in my sophomore year, Fitch's mother passed away, and I knew I wasn't cut out for academics, so after graduating from university, I gradually took over old Lin's team. During Fitch's graduate studies, I expanded the business to Beijing. Back then, after finishing work each day, I would drive to Fitch's school to meet him. As soon as the car stopped, I saw Fitch, dressed neatly and refreshingly, standing by with a backpack, waiting for me. He had grown taller since high school, his features even more handsome, but still clearly a pure-looking male college student who hadn't yet stepped into society. Meanwhile, I was wearing a long dress, every strand of my hair meticulously styled at the salon, paired with high heels and red lipstick. Although he was actually a few months older than me, during that time, I always liked to hook his tie and coax him into calling me sister. Fitch, with eyes and brows full of emotion, he piously knelt at my feet, blushing all over as he whispered, "Sister, sister, I'm a straightforward person, rich and beautiful. Of course I live as I please, when I keep a man. I spoil him quite a bit too. I've already thought it through. Fitch, if he wants to be a doctor, I'll open a hospital for him. If he wants to be an astronomer, I'll buy him a star." Later, Fitch became a top physicist, so I invested heavily in building a research institute for him. As an adult, Fitch became even more captivating. The once tall and lanky boy had shed his youthful innocence, his features now sharp and strikingly handsome, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and smooth, powerful muscle lines. Those hands held me as I walked, veins bulging, yet not a single breath was panting, only the heart was pounding wildly. Who would have thought that Professor Fitch, usually aloof and restrained, actually had so many tricks up his sleeve in private that it was downright terrifying. Sometimes when my back ached too much, I would make excuses to slip away, but he thought it was because he had aged and lost his charm, and that I had lost interest in him. Christina. Fitch rarely shed tears during hard times in the past, but after being with me, he often gets teary-eyed in bed. I bought a new toy, want to try it, but I'm not one to resist temptation. Fitch takes off his glasses, and I lose all sense of restraint. After marriage, my career flourished, and the company I took over from old Lin successfully went public. That same year, Fitch won the highest award in theoretical physics, when the interview video was made public. Everyone was astonished by the winner's youth and appearance. Those who knew him were even more puzzled. Fitch was constantly shuttling between the research institute and unknown places. How did he still have the energy to conduct research and win such an award? Only I know that their confusion stems from never having seen Fitch during his high school years. In the final segment of the interview video, the reporter asked Fitch, "Is there someone you most want to thank for winning this award?" The large screen displayed Fitch's cool yet gentle face as he spoke softly, firm and tender. "My wife." Fitch's gaze seemed to pierce through the screen and look at me. She was the hero of my youth. She was like a beam of light, enduring and brilliant. From then on, she swept away all the gloom in his life. The end.